Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the New York Rangers and if we could be seeing some big trades happening from them in the near future, and then maybe talking about why they could be deciding to make this decision. So before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So the Rangers are in the hockey headlines right now, and it's not for the right reasons, as there are talks that the Blue Shirts could be making some major changes here in the coming weeks, maybe a little bit later, we don't know, as they could be set to trade big name players like Jacob Trouba and then Chris Kreider. This is a media frenzy, and of course I'm kind of buying into this, or adding on to this, if you will, by talking about it, but I think that there are a variety of reasons people feel this could happen. We're going to talk about 3 of those in this video, and then I'm going to give my take about whether or not we could actually be seeing some of these trades go down. The first one is New York's recent losing streak. They've lost 3 in a row, have not looked very good, have had 2 pretty bad losses back to back. People are saying that the loss to the Edmonton Oilers was the nail in the coffin for this group, and that there has to be a big change, that people are making a statement in the front office. If Drury, their GM, is making that decision based off a 3-game losing streak, he's insane. Unless he's seeing something that we're not, because they are not the first team to lose 3 games in a row. They certainly won't be the last. Other teams can go out there and lose 10 in a row, and we just make a video about it because it's funny, and we talk about how they're rebuilding. The Rangers have done so much in recent years to use a 3-game span or a 3-game streak, looking at that span and say this is why we decided to move on from a player or make a big change, would be ridiculous unless you are hearing something from another GM about a big return. So yes, if you're talking about this as a losing streak being the big reason why this is happening, we're just going to say that we agree to disagree, because I don't think that is the sole reason or even the major reason here. The second reason is maybe New York is trying to move away from some of these core guys, if you will, or maybe bigger role players, especially players that are a little bit older. There's kind of a caveat there, especially because Trouba is not that old and they have other older players. But when you're looking at Chris Kreider out of the 2, he certainly is the more senior one at 33 years old. Kreider has had an incredible career for New York. Sometimes it's been more incredible than other years, but over the past 3 seasons in particular, he's put together some big numbers and played a big role in this team in the playoffs, especially last year when that Game 6, I think it was Game 6, hat trick against the Hurricanes in the second round, I believe it was. That was awesome. But he is a player that the team might be seeing that it's going to be leaving possibly after next season and say, we want to get return on him, or they could be seeing a guy that is having a little bit more of a quiet year and say we want to be able to get a return this year where maybe more teams would be interested and they don't see as big of a fall off from this season, and they say we could get maybe some young guys into this roster or some future draft picks. So that is kind of the logic there with him, a player that maybe could fetch a good return, especially for his cap hit. As for Jacob Trouba, 30 years old, he is a team's captain. He certainly is a polarizing figure. I think he's a little bit harder to talk about, mainly because people get so emotional when discussing it. I don't think that that's kind of bad in a way. I think it's one of those deals where it just happens. Seeing what he's done in the playoffs in the regular season, if he's a guy that's playing against your team, it's pretty rational for you to be emotional when you see some of the hits that he lays when he goes across that line. But I think right now, too, we can all kind of agree his play does not justify his cap hit, and he's a player that would be a little bit harder to move on from, and you might have to eat a little bit of his money. But he'd also be a guy that if he was shipped out, maybe a team that is able to get him at a discount would be a little bit more eager to give you something up in return. We say we can move on from the cap hit a little bit, and that would be a good thing, which kind of brings us up to our last talking point here, which is money. And money kind of is the thing that makes the world go round, especially in the NHL with the salary cap, mainly because everybody's trying to deal with the lack of money. And in this case, that New York is kind of strapped for cash. They're trying to figure out how to make things work with a lot of contracts that need to be figured out here, especially with the fact that they're trying to figure out a monster deal with Igor Shesterkin, their starting goalie, that could possibly go above $12 million. I mean, I don't know how high this thing will go here. Hopefully not 13 million, not $13, they'd love that, but enough that it's going to eat up a lot of the Rangers cap, and that's going to be something that could be a big problem for the team going forward in the future. I'm not certainly the first one to talk about this too, but Artemi Panarin is on a expiring deal. I think after next season, he's probably going to get paid even if it's a short to midterm deal. The money will probably be high, knowing that he will still be probably one of their more impactful players. And then they just gave money to Alexi Lafreniere. They've got some younger guys that they're going to have to go out and pay. Kaapo Kakko honestly might be a guy that gets a pay bump if he has a better year. I mean, again, it looks like this year may be better than last year. Not saying that's going to be the totality here, but other guys are going to be getting paid, and it's just tough because, again, you're seeing a guy like Igor that might get a pay increase of $6, $7, $8 million alone, and you realize that there are many problems attached to this. Whereas if you trade away guys like Kreider and then Trouba, you could get players, you could get draft picks, and you could get money to allocate that to your roster going forward to keep some of those bigger pieces, because they're not going to let Shesterkin leave, mainly because they've got Jonathan Quick as their backup. Jonathan Quick has been having another good year in his second season with New York, but he's also old, and they don't want to have to figure out what life would be like, without Igor Shesterkin if they go on another deep run in the playoffs and then say, well, now we've got a goalie that is having success elsewhere, or just a guy that is in a spot where he's not as thrilled with us as a franchise. You don't want to have an awkward relationship with a player that could very well carry you to the Stanley Cup final and win it. So after discussing the why for some of these reasons, we're going to be talking about if I think this will happen. And my answer to this is maybe. Could be Trouba, could be Kreider, could be both. I think that Trouba would be the one you'd like to move on from a little bit more, but I also think that if we're being realistic, Kreider could be the guy that would be more sought after, that would be more enviable as a playoff performer that could give you a lot of goals in a season and be a leader. But I think it would also be very heartbreaking to see Kreider on a different team. He's already third all time in Rangers history for goals, will probably be second if he's able to have a good finish to the season and come back and be healthy, because he is currently injured right now. But that would just be very, I feel like, gut-wrenching for Rangers fans seeing him go, but also kind of just what we see in the NHL these days, where guys aren't, able to play 15, 20 years with one team, and that's just the way the business goes. I think that if New York could get a good return on both of these guys, they would probably be gone, but I really don't know how things are going to go here, because the way things work, they could possibly not trade these guys until the offseason and then get one more run at this. But I will be the first to admit, of course, too, that if they wait until that point, then they would have even less time that they could trade these players away and make things more difficult when they're trying to work out their salary and trying to get some of these big deals signed. And if you are able to say, well, you'll get a year and a half with this player to the team you're trading them to, then obviously you're going to be getting a better return for this. So it's all very odd for New York. It's very weird because, like everybody kind of talked about, they feel like a team that will be safe and make it into the postseason, even if they're not winning their division. I still feel like they're a side that if they get in, they will be dangerous. And that's where I'm like, I don't know. It's just so weird sometimes when you see these organizations make such big decisions, and I know sometimes it goes deeper than what we know, but I think for New York, it's just odd how weird things got so fast for this team when it's still going to be okay. I think, at least, because I didn't expect them to win the President's Trophy this year, so I don't know why people are surprised that they regressed a little bit, because I felt like that was to kind of be expected, and I don't know. So anyway, just kind of talking about all this mess right now. I know I'm a couple days late on it, but I did want to give my 2 cents, if you will, even if people think that my 2 cents are a pair of rusty pennies that should just be thrown in the trash. So anyway, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you think that Chris Kreider will be gone? Everybody will shed a tear. Do you think that Trouba should be gone or will be gone? Do you think both will be gone? Do you think other guys could get shipped out? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go the fog, you alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.